Before strategy, before competition, before execution, there is identity. Welcome to a new series, the Strategic Operating System, From Values to Projects. This series builds a complete institutional architecture, layer by layer, from foundation to execution. We will explore 7 structural layers: identity, direction, analysis, choice, performance, allocation, execution. This is not motivational strategy. This is structural strategy. This is how institutions think. And we begin at the foundation. Episode 1. Identity, constraint, and legitimacy. Because without identity, strategy collapses.
Well, today, we're going to unpack a really powerful idea. The reason so many strategies fail has nothing to do with the plan itself. It's about what was missing before anyone even opened a spreadsheet. And this quote right here just nails the problem. We're taught to think of strategy as the starting gun for success, right? But what if that's actually jumping into the middle of the story? It's like we're skipping the entire first chapter, the one that sets the stage for everything else. Without it, the rest of the book just doesn't make any sense. And this is what that looks like in practice. On the left, you've got the question that launches 1,000 PowerPoints. How do we win? It's all about tactics, market share, crushing the competition. But we leap to that before we've even thought about the much bigger, much more important question on the right: who are we? See, without a solid answer to that, winning is a totally empty concept. Any plan you make is just a bunch of random moves on a chessboard.
This right here is the consequence. I want you to imagine trying to build a skyscraper without a foundation. You could have the most incredible blueprints in the world, that's your strategy, but the first stiff breeze is going to send the whole thing crashing down. An organization's identity is its foundation. Without that clarity, any strategy you build on top is just, well, shaky and pretty much doomed to fall apart under pressure.
Okay, so if strategy isn't the real starting point, what is? If we need this super solid foundation, what's it actually made of? This is where we get to the core idea for our entire conversation today: organizational identity. Let's unpack this definition, because it's packed with meaning. Legitimate means it's seen as real and valid, not just by you, but by the rest of the world. Constraining is huge. It means it sets boundaries, telling you what not to do. And character in action? That means it's not just some nice words on a poster. It's how the organization truly behaves when the chips are down. It's who you are when the rubber meets the road.
So identity is doing 2 critical jobs at the exact same time. On one hand, legitimacy gives you permission to act. It's your green light. It authorizes you to go after certain goals because they're authentic to who you are. But, and this is just as important, constraint creates focus. It builds the guardrails on the highway, stopping you from chasing every shiny new thing and making sure you pour all your energy where it's going to have the most impact.
Now, to really get our heads around identity, we need to look at it from 2 different angles, or domains, that are totally linked. First up, you've got the existential. That's the big why. And then you've got the behavioral. That's the practical how. Let's start with the big one, the existential foundation.
The existential structure. This is all about the deepest questions you can ask. This is basically the soul of the organization. It answers, why are we even here? And who on earth gave us the right to do what we're doing?
Now, this whole existential thing isn't just one vague idea. It's actually built on 3 key pillars that anchor the whole reason for being: purpose, mission, and mandate. Let's take a quick look at each one.
First up, purpose. This is your North Star. It's the infinite game you're playing. It's the thing that doesn't change when a new CEO comes in or the market takes a downturn. Think about a healthcare company. Their purpose might be something like to alleviate human suffering. It's huge, it's timeless, and it's the ultimate well of meaning for everyone who works there.
So if purpose is that infinite why, then mission is the very finite what. It's your purpose in action, right here, right now. It takes that huge, timeless reason for being and turns it into marching orders. So for that same healthcare company, the mission might be to develop and deliver affordable vaccines to developing nations this decade. See? It's specific, it's actionable, and it gives real direction. And finally, you've got mandate. This is your official license to operate, your permission slip. It's the legal or formal authority that gives you the right to even try to achieve your mission. For a government agency, this is literally the law that created them. For a company, it could be your corporate charter or the licenses you need to operate. It sets those hard and fast boundaries you absolutely cannot cross.
Okay, so we've established why the organization exists. That's the soul. Now let's pivot to that second domain, the behavioral structure. This is all about how you actually show up in the world, how you deliver on that big existential promise. And this how is defined by 4 interconnected pieces that really bring the identity to life. We're talking about the organization's values, its culture, its core competencies, and of course, its relationship with its stakeholders. So, values are what you say you believe. You know, the words on the wall. But culture, that's the real deal. It's how people actually behave, especially when things get hard. A truly strong identity needs those 2 things to be the same. When your stated values and your lived culture match up, you get consistency and trust. Next, core competencies. These are your superpowers. It's what you are uniquely, deeply good at. We're not just talking about things you do well. These are the special strengths that allow you to deliver on your mission in a way nobody else can. If your mission is to build the safest cars on the planet, then world-class engineering has to be one of your core competencies. It has to be in your DNA. And last, but definitely not least, stakeholders. This is everybody: your customers, your employees, your investors, the community you operate in. They are the ultimate judges of your identity. At the end of the day, their buy-in, their social acceptance, is what makes your organization legitimate in the real world. Without them on board, your identity is just an internal memo. Okay, now this is where it all comes together beautifully. This matrix shows that dual role, that push and pull of legitimacy and constraint for every single piece we've just talked about. Take a look at purpose, for example. It legitimizes why you even exist, but it also prevents you from drifting off course by keeping your eyes on that North Star. Or look down at core competencies. They legitimize your ability to actually deliver results, but they also prevent you from stretching yourself too thin by reminding you not to play in arenas where you just can't win.
So here's the big takeaway. Here's the bottom line. Identity isn't some soft, fluffy concept that's separate from the hard work of strategy. No way. It is the essential foundational layer of your entire strategic operating system. It defines your right to be in the game, it sets the boundaries of the playing field, and it makes sure that every single strategic move you make is authentic and makes sense.
And that leaves us with one final, very challenging thought. The next time you're sitting in a conference room, ready to plan the future, to talk about growth and winning, I want you to just pause for a second, look around that room, and ask the single most important strategic question there is. Have we really, truly, with absolute clarity, answered the question, who are we?
The conceptual structure is now clear. Identity precedes strategy. It authorizes action. It constrains deviation. The question now is, does this logic hold in real institutions? We will examine 2 contrasting cases, one public, one private, to test the structural validity of the framework.
Okay, let's get right into it. We talk about identity for people all the time, right? But what about for huge organizations? How do they know who they are? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and see how identity theory works in the real world by looking at a super important institution, the UK's National Audit Office, or NAO.
First things first, let's make sure we're on the same page. When we talk about institutional identity, what we're really talking about is the DNA of an organization. It's this special mix of its purpose, its reason for being, its core values, its internal culture, and its official mandate. Put that all together, and you get the thing that defines its character, and, this is the crucial part, guides everything it does.
Now, theory is one thing, but seeing it in action is way more interesting. So we're going to deconstruct the now piece by piece to see exactly how all these elements come together to create such a powerful and solid identity. Let's look under the hood.
So, who exactly is the NAO? Well, in a nutshell, they're the UK's independent public spending watchdog. Their job is to follow the money, audit government departments, and report back to Parliament on whether taxpayers are actually getting value. And believe me, that is a massive responsibility.
All right, to really understand the NAO's identity, we have to start at the beginning with the official blueprint. This is the formal stuff, the documents and rules that lay out its entire reason for being.
Let's start with their purpose. I mean, why does the NAO even exist? It's actually crystal clear. To help Parliament keep an eye on government spending and, ultimately, to protect public accountability. This purpose is what gives them their legitimacy. It's their why.
Okay, so if that's the why, the mission is the what. What do they actually do all day? Well, here it is. They conduct financial audits, they do these deep dive value for money studies, and they report everything they find back to Parliament. This mission also creates a really clear boundary, keeping them laser focused on just these audit functions.
But you might be asking, where do they get the right to do all this? That comes from their mandate, which was set in stone by the National Audit Act way back in 1983. This law is what gives the NAO its independence from the government it's supposed to be watching, and it makes them accountable directly to Parliament. It's their legal muscle.
So that's the official plan on paper, but we all know what's written down isn't always how things really work, right? So now let's explore the lived identity, how that blueprint actually comes to life inside the organization, through its people and its principles.
The foundation of this whole lived identity rests on its values. For the NAO, these 4 words are everything: independence, objectivity, integrity, and transparency. And listen, these are not just feel-good words they stick on a poster. They are the actual shields that protect its credibility and stop any kind of political pressure from getting in.
And you can see how those values directly feed the culture. The day-to-day vibe at the NAO is built on a strict discipline of evidence-based analysis, a healthy dose of what they call professional skepticism, and just an unwavering, non-partisan approach to everything. This is what independence looks like in action.
Okay, so we've got the blueprint on paper and the culture on the inside. Now let's talk about the pillars that hold up its authority with the rest of the world. Because at the end of the day, this is all about trust.
The first pillar is simply being incredibly good at what they do. I mean, think about it. You can shout about your independence all you want, but if you don't have the skills to back it up, it's just hot air. The NAO's deep expertise in advanced auditing and forensic investigation is what gives their identity real teeth.
And legitimacy isn't something you just have. It's something you have to earn constantly from your key stakeholders. You see them here: Parliament, taxpayers, the committees they report to. The NAO's authority depends entirely on the continued trust of these groups. If that trust ever goes away, the whole thing falls apart.
So, let's bring this all home. How does this strong, clear identity actually shape what the NAO can, and just as importantly, cannot do? This is where identity becomes a set of strategic guardrails.
Check this out. Because its entire identity is built around being an independent auditor, the NAO is actively blocked from doing a whole bunch of things. It cannot make policy. It cannot enforce government decisions. It definitely can't try to make a profit. Its identity acts like a powerful fence, keeping it squarely focused on its mission and stopping it from ever wandering out of its lane.
And all of this brings us to the big takeaway. A clear, well-defined identity is what gives an institution its anchor. It provides stability and coherence, making sure the organization doesn't drift off course. It keeps strategy locked onto purpose.
So really, it all comes down to this. A strong identity is a powerful, stabilizing force. A weak one? That leads to drift, confusion, and eventually, a total collapse of credibility. So I'll leave you with the question to chew on. What is your organization's true identity? And maybe more importantly, what's holding it all together?
The identity logic holds in a public institution. But is identity equally constraining in a competitive market? Let us now shift from parliamentary legitimacy to market legitimacy.
Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something that a lot of people think of as kind of soft, corporate identity. But we're going to break it down and show you how it can be a company's most powerful, rock-solid strategic asset. And we'll do it by looking at a truly world-class example. So what is that one asset? The one that's so powerful but so often overlooked? Well, it's the thing that guides every single decision, builds unshakable trust, and creates an advantage that lasts. And to really get our heads around this, we're going to explore the identity architecture of a true global leader. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get to know our case study, Schneider Electric. Then, we're going to peel back the layers of its identity, starting with its core purpose and going all the way to how it gets tested in the real world. And finally, we'll pull out the big lesson that every leader needs to hear. Ready? Let's jump in. Okay, so let's meet our subject for today, Schneider Electric. This is a company that has managed to weave sustainability and digital transformation right into its DNA. It's not just something they do, it's who they are. So, who are they really? Well, Schneider is a huge global player in energy and automation, doing business in over 100 countries. But what makes them the absolute perfect case study for us is their deep strategic commitment to sustainability. It's this focus that really shows us how a clear, consistent identity can drive incredible success. Right? now let's get into the nuts and bolts of how an identity like this is actually built. We're starting at the absolute foundation with 3 core ideas: purpose, mission, and mandate. These are the things that answer the biggest, most fundamental questions a company can ask itself.
First up, you've got purpose. This is the big why. Why does this company even exist? For Schneider, it's crystal clear: to empower all to make the most of our energy and resources. See, it's not just about selling stuff. It's about enabling something bigger: efficiency, progress, and a sustainable future for everybody.
And you got to understand, this is so much more than a feel-good slogan you stick on a poster. A strong purpose is the ultimate justification for a company's existence. It's the reason it has the right to be here, competing and using resources for the long haul.
So, if the purpose is the why, the mission is the what. This is how that huge, inspiring purpose actually gets translated into real-world action. For Schneider, it means they get up every day to build the actual systems and solutions, the tangible things that make their purpose a reality. And here's the really critical part. A good mission creates focus. It draws a line in the sand. It tells the company exactly what business it's in, and, just as importantly, what business it's not in. It's what keeps them from chasing every shiny new object. And last in this trio is the mandate. Now, the easiest way to think about this is like a formal permission slip from society. It's all the legal stuff, the corporate charters, the regulations, the shareholder agreements. It's the official, formal license to operate. But this mandate, it's a two-way street. On one hand, it gives the company the legitimacy it needs to even be in the game. But on the other, it puts up some very real boundaries on how they can behave. It sets the rules. Okay, so we've covered the formal foundation. Now we get to shift gears a bit and look at the ethical and behavioral side of things, starting with values. You see, if the mission is what the company does, values are all about how they do it. For Schneider, these values are like their strategic North Star. And here's why that's so incredibly important. It's really easy to get tempted by a short-term win that might compromise who you are in the long run. Strong values act like a guardrail. They keep the company on the right path and prevent those kinds of damaging decisions. So what's next? Culture. Now, if values are the compass, then culture is how the crew actually steers the ship, day in and day out. It's how the company's identity and its big ESG promises are actually lived and breathed by its people through their actions and their mindset. This is where the rubber really meets the road. Culture is what makes a company's identity tangible and visible to the outside world. You can see it in their rigorous engineering, in their forward-thinking digital mindset. This is the living, breathing proof that the identity is real. All right, let's talk about what grounds this whole identity structure in reality. First off, core competencies. These are the specific hard skills that Schneider is genuinely amazing at. This is the stuff where they are, without a doubt, world-class. And let me be clear, this part is absolutely non-negotiable. Without this deep, technical expertise, Schneider's grand purpose would just be a bunch of empty words. Their capabilities are what give their promises real weight and credibility. You have to be able to walk the walk. So, who gets to decide if all this is actually working? That would be the stakeholders. We're talking about everyone from customers and employees to regulators and shareholders. They are the audience, the judges, constantly watching to see if the company is actually living up to the identity it claims to have. Because here's the bottom line. Legitimacy isn't something you get once and then you're done. No, it has to be earned over and over again, every single day. The market is the ultimate referee. It rewards companies that are consistent, and it will absolutely punish those that say one thing and do another. So when you put all these pieces together, you arrive at this really interesting, almost counterintuitive idea. A strong identity is also a powerful strategic constraint. Because of who they are, Schneider simply cannot abandon their focus on sustainability. They can't just decide to jump into a totally unrelated business. It would destroy the very thing that makes them credible. But here's the twist. That constraint isn't a weakness. It's actually their superpower. By creating these clear boundaries, their identity stops them from chasing distractions, and in doing so, it protects and stabilizes their core competitive advantage for the long term. So let's just boil this all down. I mean, the stakes here could not be higher. When a company has a coherent identity, its strategy makes sense, its brand is powerful, and people trust it. But without that identity, the strategy falls apart, the brand weakens, and trust, well, it completely collapses. The difference is night and day. And that really brings us to the single most important takeaway from all of this. A strong, coherent identity isn't just some happy result of being successful. No, it's the thing you need before you can achieve any kind of real lasting advantage in the first place. It comes first. So, I'll leave you with this final question to think about for any organization you know. When you look at its purpose, its values, and its actions, is its identity a real strategy that guides every single move it makes? Or is it just a nice-sounding statement on a website? Because really, the answer to that question makes all the difference in the world.
Identity anchors direction. Direction shapes choice. Choice drives execution. This is infinite business dynamics.